30 days before, then 30 days into voting season, and then start locking it again. We don't want to get people trapped in the park if they're not aware of it. So, and we'll put it out on all of our channels, newsletter, social media, and webpage, so that's all available to the public if they would go there. So that's our plan for this. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, any questions of Mark? No questions of Mark? Let's open into the public period, public comment rather. Does anybody from the public have any comment on this ordinance? Okay. Seeing none, let's close the public comment period. And if there's no further discussion, a motion will be in order.
Okay. I'll move to adopt ordinance number 1424, amending section 11-3 Fort Maitland Parks hours of operation as presented.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Lori, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Hall Harrison.
Aye.
Councilmember Wild.
Aye.
Councilmember Guthrie.
Aye.
Mayor Lowndes.
Aye. All right, carried unanimously among those here. Consent agenda. Does anybody on council have any item they'd like to pull from the consent agenda this evening? No. Does anybody from the public have any comments on consent agenda items 2 through 8? Seeing none, let's close the public comment period on the consent agenda and bring it back up to council and a motion to be in order.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda for January 8th, 2024.
Okay.
I had to get one in there, man. I had to.
I was looking down. I was looking for something.
You didn't want to do all the hard work tonight. I'll second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Lori, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Wild.
Aye.
Councilmember Guthrie.
Aye.
Councilmember Hall Harrison.
Aye.
Mayor Lowndes.
Aye. Okay, we have adopted that one as well. Let's open the public period. This is the Maitland public period, general public period. If anybody has anything they'd like to comment on, please come up now. We do have a speaker's card filed by Mr. Winter. So if you'd like to, probably this podium would be the best over there. Check, make sure the green light is on the microphone, and that will amplify your voice.
Kristen, can you hear me? If not, I can just speak louder, but I can't hear you.
Wait, here we go. Okay, that should do it.
Yes. Oh, I'm ready again? Okay, great. Well, thank you, Council, for having me this evening. I come here today mostly to discuss an issue I see with traffic around Maitland Summit Boulevard and Summit Tower Boulevard. What I've seen over the past couple months is a lot of traffic incidents involving collisions and near collisions with pedestrians. Since I live near this intersection, I believe that the main problem comes down to not enough lights and the lack of a proper traffic light system. At least a way to coordinate the movement of cars, since it's a very densely populated area in relative to what's available. You see, the thing about this intersection that it has a Chick-fil-A, a 7-Eleven gas station, and a Wendy's, as well as a series of office space that comes around in this intersection that's right off of Maitland Boulevard. And seeing that we have about 500,000, I'm guessing, from the budget I saw from last year for North Kelly Road, I believe that there's a way to either provision some of that money to that intersection or to provision more money for this intersection that at least allow us to have more safety and a better time for moving traffic. Especially as I was coming up here, I see a lot of problems with cars spilling out onto the road that either want to cut traffic because they don't have enough time or because they feel that there's just not enough people paying attention, either on their phones or something, that's not letting traffic move forward through. So I just asked the council to consider adding this to the budget for this year, and I yield my time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Wood. Before you go, let me just make sure I understand that the intersection that you're talking about, Maitland Summit and Summit Tower?
That's right.
Okay. Okay, thank you. All right, thank you very much.
Okay, Dave McDonald, 108 Hazelwood, echoing Mr. Winter's concerns. So like a Project Zero topic. Another thing I wanted to establish or to speak on tonight is the financial disclosure Form 6. I was curious if there might be some discussion, some thoughts that y'all might have regarding I mean, I only did 9 disclosure forms, but no Form 6. So I was curious what your thoughts might be. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Mr. McDonald. A lot more than we were disclosing before, as we weren't disclosing it up before. So it's going to be a more rigorous disclosure, one that apparently that legislators have been dealing with for some time, and now they've pushed that requirement down to us. So.
In fact, I mean, if you hadn't brought it up, I had this set for Mr. McDonough. I brought it up just a second ago. I had this as a discussion piece for next week, not to complain about the disclosure part in general, but really, I think, and I don't know why they're doing this. I mean, for $1,000, I mean, I could have a guitar for $1,000, you know. I mean, so the part that kind of worries me is that in the disclosure, you have to show all your investments. So you don't have to show the dollar amount, but you have to show everything that you've invested, and it's public record. House Representative Smith down here in Winter Springs, I went on and looked at everything he's done. I mean, I can see everything he's invested. I know what the worth of his house is and what's inside the house. So that also concerns me. You know, and then you also have to bring your wife into this too, if you all have anything shared. So it's kind of big, and I think, you know, the problem one of the things I have is that I'm worried. We already have a problem here in Maitland, and getting people to come and serve on this board. So I think, you know, when we look to have our planning session here in a couple months, or a month or two, whenever we're going to do that, which we need to discuss also, that we really look at this and tackle it and say, how are we going to get people to want to come out and, you know, be part of city council, because a lot of people are going to be kind of scared away with it, especially in the next year or two. And another problem I have is most of the money that I make here gets sent to the 501c3 that I participate in. So now that it's a recommendation that you hire a CPA or a professional to do this form for you, because if anything on that form is out of order or they come after you, it's $20,000. You know, and you make $4,000 a year one, that hurts the 501c3 that I give my money to. Now they're out $500 a year, you know. So yeah, I just think it's, in my easy terminology, bunk. So I mean, Cliff, if I've said anything that's not accurate,
you're 100% accurate. I will either weigh in or not, depending on what you want to do. But yeah, you're 100% accurate, and many have resigned. And just in our cities alone, one councilperson resigned from Ponce, one resigned from Day City, another resigned from Jack's Beach. That's the ones I can remember, but there's more.
There's four
from Belle Isle of the 7.
4 from St. Pete Beach.
Yeah, and
Who's the mayor?
And again, those are the ones that I know of. There's a lot more that I don't, because they all had to do it before the end of the year in order to avoid filing. If you didn't resign before December 30th or 31st, you still have to file even if you resign today. And so it's fixing a problem that really didn't exist while not fixing problems that do. But that pretty much describes what goes on in that place out west. You know, there is a possibility, and I haven't been asked to research it, but it was brought to my attention by Ms. Hollingsworth, that under your charter, you might be able to be reimbursed for this. And your charter has the following provision in it. It says, councilmen shall receive their actual and necessary expenses incurred in the performance of the duties of office. So the question would be legally, is the requirement now to file this form, and that it could potentially cost someone money who opts to do it with an accountant, which makes sense, since the other option, I think, is to file a copy of your tax return as some sort of an alternative. Then maybe this would qualify. The best way to answer that question of actual and necessary, other than me opining, which I'm happy to do, is to go to the AG's office from the place that is in literal concert with the legislature and seeing to it that we're all dealing with this stuff. And I would say that I've never seen it's very cynical, and I apologize, but I've never seen a legislator not be in favor of reimbursement. And so I suspect that you might get a favorable ruling from the AG on this subject. But I could make the argument either way. Is it an actual necessary expense, i.e. what our charter indicates is the basis for reimbursement, or is it just part of the cost of doing business, like not being a convicted felon, or whatever that might be? I don't know how the AG would see it, but I think it's worth an argument. And if you ask me my own opinion sitting here, it's clear that this is a necessary expense incurred in the performance of your duties of office. The question is it an actual and necessary when you put those two things together, as opposed to like the cost of driving to and from the meetings and paying for gas? I think it falls into the category where you could legitimately reimburse the expense. But the thing that's missing from this calculation is reasonable, right? Some CPAs might cost you several $1,000s to this, others might cost you less. And there's no reasonableness number in here, so I'm not sure how to figure that into the equation.
Is there a in-between where, this might be a terrible idea, where the city could, instead of us going to each one going to their own, have somebody that the city could
Contract for
that we could consult with?
I would suspect the answer is yes, you could do that. I don't know that there would be a reason not to, for the same reason that this is a part of what you guys have to do if you consider it an appropriate governmental expenditure. Obviously, the concern I'd have is once you provide the information to an accountant or whatever that's being paid for by the government, it's public record.
Or if we do our own account, then it's going to be public record anyways.
The form is public
The form is
record,
going to be.
not the backup data.
The work product itself could also be.
That would be of the CPA. It's like all the work papers that go in to file on your tax return, you don't send to the IRS.
Right.
Those are protected. But your return does.
So Cliff, if I'm taking over my parents' estate and
Right.
I have to declare that also then, right?
Well, it's based on your ownership interest and value. So to the extent you have ownership or control and it's of a certain value, yes.
Can I, just following up on your question, Maitland, so if the work product, though, the form is public records, we file anyway.
Yeah.
So if the work product is then the work product of the accountant to prepare the form, also public record?
But it depends on who the accountant is working for. Is the accountant working for you or working for the city? That's the difference. So in other words, if you hired the accountant and got reimbursed, that's one scale of fish. If, as was suggested, we hire an accountant for the government and we provide them stuff to give us a product, that's the public records issue.
But I'm saying,
So they would know the money, the value of that then.
Well, they're going to know a lot of the values
Yeah.
because that's required by the form. But it's hard for me to envision what we'd be talking about. Like your estate papers may have a whole lot of stuff in there that's personal and private to you, that has nothing to do with the dollars and cents, but has to do with I love this brother more than I love that one, or something like that.
Right.
I'm just making stuff up here because I can't imagine what all the stuff might be. But my point is, the end product is going to have a lot of that financial information, but there may be other information you would rather not be public. And if you hire the person to work and you provide them the information, what goes into making the sausage is public record. That's the issue.
right, but I'm trying to figure out if there's an in-between on that, because it just doesn't seem to make a ton of sense for us all to figure this out independently.
I don't disagree with you. I just don't have an answer. We could include that. If you decided to go down the AG road, we can ask that as well. But as I'm sitting here, I'm looking at the words in your charter and an unanswered question.
I think it's worth asking. It would be my not opinion. Here's my thought. It would be not a bad idea due to the fact of just having this cloud of uncertainty lifted from everyone, that we figure this out and then explore whether or not there's a way we can have this preparation of this form be, even if we had to individually contract, but the city kind of negotiated. We had a rate that we did for all of us. So we just said, hey, for a city council who has to file this form, we go with X person, they have a set rate of 300, you put in a reimbursement, and it comes through quickly. Like we do it as a package deal.
Could be.
I think that's easy to kind of.
I would suggest we look at 19071 to see whether or not we can find an exemption as employees under that. Because the statute does have exemptions for specific types of records, which are public but are exempt from sunshine.
Yeah, could be. For example, HIPAA stuff, so yeah.
Right. So, and I think the statute does speak to that, so I think we should look specifically there to see if there's a way to carve out the exemption.
I will do what I can.
So what gets me is on this, they doubled the penalty. What, it used to be 10,000, and they jumped it up to 20,000. You know?
I just think we all now have to comply. We're sitting here today, we have to comply, so I think that.
Well, yeah, and I'll tell you what, I'll tell you truthfully, I had a talk with Mark and Lori probably mid-December about if I was gonna come back, and I called the lawyer up there in Tallahassee and talked to him about it, and he told me that, and I went through everything that I had, and he told me, yeah, you have to claim that, no, you don't have to claim that, and so that's the only thing that really, had me come back, because I was really thinking about it. I didn't want to drag my wife's finances into this. It's not really anybody's business.
Okay, so Vance, you said you were going to bring this up on a discussion item in the next meeting.
Yeah.
So is this, Cliff, will you have what you need, if we give it enough heads up here?
If you're telling me to get an AG opinion, that's on them. I can get the question to them quickly, but I can't get their response back. They can do that on their own schedule. But as for my own opinion, yeah, I'll have that by the next meeting.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I don't think we're probably, we can discuss that next time,
Okay.
an AG opinion, but I don't think we're quite to that point yet. I'm not sure that's very helpful in any case. Okay, great.
So
We don't file this till July.
So you're saying you don't want Cliff to get an AG opinion right now?
Well, I don't know that we can take a vote right now to request it. I don't know, is there any interest in an AG opinion on this? Do you all?
I would be foolish not to. Yeah.
I don't see any reason not to try and at least explore our options.
If it were just about our charter, they would reject it out of hand. But it's the interaction of our charter and state law that makes it an AGO potential question.
Yeah. To me, I always say,
The question being whether or not the city can pay for it.
Right.
Why would the AG care?
Because the question involves whether or not this expense to get this report done, which they're recommending that you get an accountant to do, and they mandate the expense, whether that's something that would be, like the same way they tell you whether you can reimburse legal expenses if a council person is charged with an ethics violation or something like that. They will weigh in based on a request, is this a reimbursable expense, based on your analysis. So I think they would weigh in. I can't guarantee it, but I think they would.
So if we get an answer we don't like, then
You're stuck with an answer you don't like, which is always the problem with AG.
So if we don't get the opinion and you say, yes, you think it's arguable, then it would be someone.
Then it's up to you all to decide whether you want to do it on the individual, use your own CPAs and then submit a reimbursement request, or whether you want to hire somebody to do it for everybody. And that brings in the other question is the public records issue. So there were two things in my mind that you could ask the AG about. One is the reimbursability issue, and the other is the public records issue.
You won't be the only question.
I'm more interested in the public records issue than I am on
is it not kind of the common wisdom that whenever you ask the AG whether anything,
You have to have an answer first. Or at least the answer you think it is because it's a
he'll always
requirement.
come down, or she will always come down and decide it's public record.
Yeah, well, not always. There are some examples that are isolated. An example is, let's suppose that I'm an interim city employee and Lori sends me a recipe, and we're on the computer systems of the system. The AG has opined that it's not intended to capture public business, and so intent matters, and even though it was on a public record system, i.e. public computers, it's not a public record. But in order to determine that, you got to look at it. And so they do sometimes say things are not public records, but yes, to your point, most of the time they say it is a public record. And that's where I think this would end up with work papers provided to someone hired by the government body to render forms for all
So
of them.
even if they're likely to go down that road, it's an answer that we're going to need.
Well, I think it sounds like you could avoid this by just going to the opinion that we would say, under our current belief, we think this is a reimbursable expense.
Yeah,
And then go down that path, but then have the city not contract with the person individually, but we get one person who can answer all of our questions, who we then pay individually, but then we have a negotiated set rate. So we're not all sitting here saying, I've got to hire an accountant and then see what they're going to charge and make sure it's fair. And
Yeah, that is a way you can do it.
I think it's easier than, and then that way we have it set going and then we know we're not going to make a mistake. I just don't want to, my fear is making a mistake. I don't.
Yeah, and because of the cost of making a mistake.
Yeah, I always say, listen, the answer is always no until you ask the question.
Yeah, but I don't know that we want to ask the question. I think John's putting, I don't know if we want to ask the question.
Like
It's
it
just-
flags it or something.
But I think we can get around not having to ask the question if we just say, let's find an accountant that can provide the service that says for X amount of money per council person, because if we all went to our own accountants, unless they're doing this, they would have to learn this law and figure this out. So if we have one person who understands the law that we can all ask the question to, I think it's efficiency out of numbers.
Like every void in the marketplace, there will be accountants who now say, I can do this.
Sure. So
Just
I
like they
think,
were to get the COVID loan.
So we would be using public resources to contract with an accountant, and then we would individually be privately using that accountant to carry on our own business.
no, so we would get one person, we would find a person, identify it, have them give a set rate. We would then all individually contract with that person, but they would have a set rate. It would be X dollars. We would pay them, but then we would submit for reimbursement under what Cliff is saying is a reimbursable expense. So the city wouldn't contract with a person, we would, but we would have a set rate and then would get reimbursed, and then there would be a question as to fairness.
So we would use.
I guess in order to go find that person, somebody's got to expend resources. So who's expending the resources?
I guess the city.
Yeah.
I thought Vance volunteered earlier to find the person. I thought he was.
Google it. I'll Google it.
I mean, I don't use an accountant.
I do, and I have for a long time, but that doesn't mean they would know this stuff. I was worried about it because there was a time they were considering making officers that Mark, myself, Lori do the same thing. And thankfully, we at least for the time being, avoided that. We're still under the first one.
Yeah.
But
We also use an accountant. That's the same thought I had. It's like, is this person going to know this new law, So, which is very doubtful. And then probably charge me more, so because it's going to be time consuming.
well, here's a thought, and it's just a thought, because I don't even, I'm sure you guys know, but I don't remember the name of who it is we use for the city auditing. But maybe check with them and see if either they do it or they know someone who is taking this on and
Sure.
can make a recommendation.
So I will say, I did look at Mr. Smith and Representative Escamani's paperwork they did, and on Escamani just did the simple version with her, W1 or whatever it is, W4, and but she did have somebody professionally do it. So there are some people out there. I don't know if we want to reach out to her and ask, who did you use? So because this to the point that I guess House representatives and have been using this form for a few years now. So there are people out there who do it for them.
John,
Joy might maybe know that. That's another good thought.
So John, you have a problem, I'm just asking, do you think it's not a good idea to have someone at the city look into this, to try to find an accountant that we could all collectively use?
No, I don't have a problem. I just, if it were a search and somebody dedicating time and contracting resources, I guess that's one thing, but if somebody just finding information, that's another for a question we're going to have.
I think before the next, if we can find out how big of a lift this would be, Mark, to have somebody.
Yeah, I think the first thing we need to do is take a look at our purchasing policy. I wouldn't anticipate this discussion going to this direction or this depth tonight. take a look at our purchasing policy to see how it would fit within our purchasing policies. And just food for thought as we continue this discussion, which it appears we're going to try to negotiate a fixed fee for the 5 of you, have the same fee for the 5 of you, when you're going to have 5 very different financial situations, would probably be a hill that's a little bit difficult to climb without you providing the information to them so they can give an average fixed fee for the 5 council people that have to submit. So,
Well, even if it's not a fixed fee, if it's just someone who is going to be the same person, so that there's not a fixed fee, if you went out, even if they had to charge us hourly, if it was just an idea that we didn't have to all go to somebody different to learn this, and then have to come back and decide whether or not that was a fair and reasonable I mean, I just think that to me is messy, in my opinion. That's
so
just,
you might probably deal with we are government, probably deal with a low bidder situation also. So.
Well, one thing I will say is that as long as it's handled the way that Councilman Wild is suggesting, which is that we would find or designate or locate the CPA and talk with them about what it might cost, but individually contract with them, then we're not under our purchasing policy so much as we're under our bargaining power. We're essentially saying, hey, we got 5 people here who are ready to do business with you. We'd like to have some consideration for that fact because we're government, and it's likely we'll come back to you year and year and year. But we will individually pay you, and the government will reimburse us.
That would still fall under our purchasing policy, so.
I'm sorry?
That would still fall under our purchasing policy, how we would solicit that person.
Okay.
yeah.
Well, since it wasn't come out of a direct payment out of government, I wasn't sure that it would.
So let's figure those questions out. I just think, what we're trying to figure out is, I think we all don't want to make a mistake. I don't want to make a mistake. And I think we're all trying to figure out. And I think it's in the city's interest to keep us out of trouble, right?
What's the deadline on this?
July, right?
Yeah, it's the same deadline as before, but because of how much is involved and how much more work it is, that is not a bad time to think about it now.
And I want to reiterate, there are no paper forms. This has to be filed electronically. And my understanding is you'll be given a unique ID that you're not to share with anyone when you register for it. So someone can't physically submit the form for you. You will have to gather the information and still plug it all into their system because they only accept electronic submissions for this.
I wonder, and that may be the case, maybe one of the things they'll fix as a glitch is the same way my tax accountant can file my return for me with a certain ID or something. Maybe that'll get resolved, but to your point, yes, as it stands right now.
Yeah, I'd have to do this 5 years just to cover that $20,000 fine. So, but I like the idea Mike has, because listen, either we get one person and we're all good to go, or we all go down with the ship together. So, I really do like that idea.
So where are we with the, well, let's give it some thought for another discussion and then decide whether we want to ask for an AG opinion, at least as regards to public records on that. Because
So you want to keep that on the discussion for next week?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I haven't had a chance to really think about that.
Let's get more answers to the questions.
Well, at least we're being proactive on it. I mean, a lot of people are out trying to find members to fill the spots that.
Yeah, I had 2 meetings on that today.
Yeah, just think if you're the one where 4 people have quit and you're trying to fill those spots. That's difficult.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to the city manager's report.
Just real quickly, a couple quick updates. So we have a movie in the park, which we're going to be showing Top Gun, Saturday the 20th at 6 o'clock.
The original version? Or
The original, yes.
Wow.
Yes. And we have Family Fun Day, January 27th, Police Department, our version of National Night Out on January 27th from 11 to 2 here at Independence Square. So it's always a good time, always builds in a good crowd, and officers and everyone on staff love to attend it. Everybody has a good time. So
Excellent.
that's all I have.
Okay. Mr. City Attorney?
Nothing more.
No, sir.
No. Anybody in council? No further reports, okay, then we stand adjourned.
I'm just glad I asked the question.
Yeah, we can
finish what I was doing.
So,
How hard to live.
oh, it's really good.